Let's away now to Barcelona and the Formula One qualifiers.
During the flight, the co-pilot informed us that we had an engine problem and would have to make an emergency landing at Lyon. We had about 10 minutes and had enough time to prepare ourselves in the brace position.
The importance of David Coulthard's triumph in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone has been put sharply into context. We saw a joyful winner, and Heidi, his fiancée, glowing with pride. On Tuesday, they both survived, along with his personal trainer, when their private jet crash-landed at Lyon, en route to Nice and the Scots' home in Monaco. The British pilot and co-pilot were both killed. And now Coulthard has to push the experience and the headlines to the back of his mind. It's very much business as usual at the Catalunya circuit, where he made his Formula One debut 6 years ago. Coulthard's here to do his job for McLaren, and the team decide that a statement is the best method of feeding the inevitable media frenzy.
On impact, the plane's wing tanks ruptured and there was a fire on the right-hand side of the aircraft. When the plane finally came to a rest, the front of the cockpit had broken free from the main fuselage. At this point, we established the only way out was through the front, and Andy led the way through the debris. And as this part was 3 or 4 feet off the ground, I followed to enable Heidi to be able to get down from the aircraft. Once we were all clear of the plane, I returned to the plane to see if there was anything I could do for the pilots, but there was nothing I could do to help. In less than a minute, the emergency services arrived, and I would like to express our thanks to the French emergency services and airport authorities for the professional and swift response.
Hello there, welcome to Barcelona. So David Coulthard races this weekend. He's been typically dignified and courteous, but there's no disguising the fact this has been a horrifying chapter in his life. But should he be driving at all? Gauge his mood now in conversation with Martin Brundle.
I know you thought long and hard about how you were going to approach this weekend with regard to the press and whether or not you were going to drive. What was your thought process?
Well, as soon as I knew physically I was fine to drive the car. Psychologically, I have absolutely no problem with driving at this circuit and this race so soon after the accident, because I believe pilots of aircraft are in the same sort of category as racing drivers. It's not a 9-to-5 regular job. You know, you have a passion for that job, and I didn't know the pilots, but the short time that I did spend with them, I could tell that they were enthusiastic towards the sport, as so many people are. And as I would want them to continue doing their job, had the circumstances been different, I firmly believe this is the best way I can pay my respects to them in what they were doing, a very professional job, and being here and racing and continuing to try and do my job to the best of my ability and to keep my focus on trying to win races and win a world championship. So
many people are saying and asking, was there any point where you thought you were going to die?
No, not at all. I obviously, you know, having a relationship with Heidi like I do, my first concern was for her. But at no point did I feel that I was in that sort of danger. Obviously, I knew potentially it was going to hurt, and obviously I feel terribly for the family of the 2 pilots who were amazing throughout the whole thing. But personally, I didn't feel that sort of fear.
So after that miraculous escape, has it changed your perspective on life?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you can't have a situation like that which brings you so close to the realities of how fragile we are on this earth, and not have, you know, a change in some way. You know, I obviously felt very close to Heidi beforehand, but I have an increased sense of how lucky I am in my life and what I have. You know, I don't live in the real world being a Grand Prix driver. You know how lucky we are that we get to compete, to drive our cars, and get paid for it. You know, our hobbies, our passion, and it's made me realise just really the importance of family and friends, and you know, really to. You know, I felt I was pretty focused before, but I feel a renewed focus and a renewed determination to get as much out of every day as possible.
Drawing a line under that then, and looking to the Spanish Grand Prix, how have you physically been in the car? Have you had any problems?
No, not really. You know, I've got a few little bruises, but that is not at all going to affect the way I can drive the car. Obviously, I expect to be a little bit more sore come Sunday evening than would be for a normal Grand Prix, because I'm starting in slightly worse physical condition. But the important thing for me was, from my first lap on Friday, I was quick, focused, and thinking about how I can get the most out of the car.
Well, that's a very thoughtful David Coulthard there. He's bruised, but he insists he's mentally and physically fit to drive at the Spanish Grand Prix. Before he sat in the McLaren, though, Coulthard had to satisfy the demands of one man, Formula One's medical supremo, Professor Sid Watkins.
Professor Nowler and Dr. Ism and myself met with him at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And we had to look at his physical injuries, which were very minor. Has a little bruising on his chest wall on the right side. Apart from that, he's physically absolutely intact. Mentally, he's very powerful, no problem. And we had no hesitation in saying, sure, go ahead and have a go.
Is there an element, do you think, of delayed shock? Is that possible?
No, I don't think so. These young men are used to having big accidents themselves. And, you know, they get out of the car and, I mean, you have difficulty in stopping them getting into another vehicle right away. So, you know, they're all mad, but they're all okay.
What did you say when you first saw him?
I can't tell you, it was impolite.
Whatever it was, it's worked. David Coulthard quickest in the first session and second behind Michael Schumacher in the second practice session today. Welcome to the ITV studio. We are trackside with Tony Jardine and Patrick Head, Technical Director of Williams. Patrick, you had David Coulthard with you. Indeed, you gave him his debut here back in '94. Does it surprise you at all that he is driving this weekend?
Yes, it does. It's amazing seeing the pictures of the damage to the aircraft. To think that any passenger on board that could be in a condition to drive in a Grand Prix, and I think they are incredibly lucky. It's obviously very sad for the pilots, and but it's just amazing that I mean, in these small jets you just only have a lap strap, very simple seat belts, so it's amazing that they weren't more hurt.
When you say it surprises you, does that mean that you, if he'd been your driver, you wouldn't have fancied him in a Williams this weekend?
I think you know, we'd leave it to the driver and Sid Watkins, really. But I think the thing that amazes me is that he hasn't suffered more bruising and strains, and thank goodness that he didn't.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Tony, it just goes to show that Coulthard, and indeed every one of the Formula One drivers that we talk about, are really a breed apart.
Well, they certainly are, but I mean, he's a very decent bloke. He's a very sensitive bloke to what's happened, particularly, as Patrick said, to the pilots as well. But they're conditioned to having accidents on the track, but nobody is conditioned to that sort of thing, and thank goodness, you know, the majority of us will never have to go through that sort of trauma. But to climb in the car as he did on Friday, and again this morning as he did, he seems to have been unaffected by it, and he's concentrating on the job in hand, which is great for us, great for McLaren, great for him. He was fastest in the first session this morning. You saw him taking the fastest time there. How much he's going to get battered in the cockpit by the end of Sunday, we don't know. He's bruised down the right-hand side, a lot of right-hand bends here, but he's a very fit boy.
Okay, well, let's move on and let's talk about Williams, shall we? You know, at the start of the season, the message from the Grove headquarters in Oxfordshire was don't expect too much. We have an untried BMW engine. We've got a rookie in Jenson Button, and don't forget that Ralf Schumacher virtually carried the team on his own back in '99. Well, Schumacher has been very consistent, and look at Williams, tucked in nicely behind the big two.
Without doubt, the biggest surprise story of the year so far is the success of the new BMW-Williams partnership. With 12 points from 4 races, including a podium at Melbourne, BMW has made the most successful debut for an engine in the last 10 years. Remarkably, they've had only 3 blow-ups in races, while their rivals Jordan and Jaguar have struggled to finish. 5th in last year's World Championship, this year they're lying 3rd. So how's it happened, and will it last?
We've done better than most or many of the other teams, but some of those teams who have had difficulties when they're firing all cylinders, so to speak, probably have the legs of us. We'll see. But that said, we are very pleasantly surprised with BMW's performance. We thought we'd start at ground zero and work up, but we've gone, if we did do that, we've moved well away from ground zero.
I have to say Williams did a brilliant car this year. I think it's a big improvement to the 99 car. Our engine is slowly coming together. Performance-wise, we are not too bad. We are not too far from the top engines. We still have some potential what we would like to use later on this year. But as I said, in the moment, priority is reliability.
Well, obviously it was a dream start and an unexpected start, and we didn't really expect to finish in such good positions to begin with, but at the end of the day our target is to win races and maybe one day to win a World Championship as a team, and obviously you take it as it comes, and now our target is to be 3rd in the Constructors at the end of this year.
I know Formula One very well, and it's very difficult to get competitive in this game. It just takes at least 1.5 years. We could cut up some corners, and Williams, with their experience, helped us a lot to cut these corners. And so, yeah, we did it in a good way, and we did a bit better than the expectation was. But in the end of the day, we are still long away from where we want to go. And I still believe we're going to have some difficult time, because it's not going to go always just up.
Formula One is very difficult coming in with a new engine, especially with a new driver as well. So now they've had to work very hard, but they've done an excellent job. When we've had problems, they've fixed the problems very quickly, and we'll just keep pushing on. And hopefully over the next few years we'll get right up there.
It's a very strong driver lineup for their age. They're doing remarkably well. Sign of the times, I guess. There's some very good drivers out there got to beat, but I would say give them a little bit more time and winning equipment, they'll be winning.
So how much more has Jensen got to do before Williams takes up its option on him for next year?
Wouldn't have a clue. I'll speak to the big man upstairs.
We'll just do a few more races and then we'll make our decision.
But you must be very pleased with what you've seen so far.
He's really exceeding expectations and will be a great racing driver, we think, no question.
OK, Patrick, you're one of the 2 big men upstairs, I think we can say. What's holding you up making that decision?
Well, obviously, there's no point in making such major decisions earlier than you need to. You need to get information together. And obviously, Jensen has a very high level of talent, but we have the freedom to take a little bit longer before we decide what we're going to do for the future, and Frank and I can prevaricate for as long as we...
I know you can. Someone suggested to me that you've already blown in Jensen's ear and said you're OK for next year, the deals are being done.
I don't know who that was, but they're obviously not on the inside anyway.
OK. What has he got to do from now on in then to get your confidence and to get that vote that he hasn't done already?
He's doing everything that could be expected of him. He just has to carry on doing what he's doing at the moment. He's doing an absolutely brilliant job. I think the pressure's on us to produce a better car, and for BMW a better engine for him, really. He's doing a sterling job.
Ralph Schumacher saying there to James Allen that it's unexpected how well you've gone this season. Has it surprised you as well a bit?
Yes, it has. I knew the car was going to be quite a bit better, and the engine, BMW were very straightforward about it to begin with, in saying it isn't going to be the lightest, it isn't going to be the smallest, it isn't going to be the most powerful, but I've been very impressed with it, and I think that they're doing a very good job of managing the inevitable problems that do arise.
I know you've got to get away to manage the team in the qualifying hour. Just give us a little spec about what we might expect. I mean, are you going to be taking a bit of Spanish sunshine for half an hour, or is it going to be a slow burner this session, or will they go out straight away?
Well, as you may see, there's a little bit of cloud cover coming in over the top, and basically how well people go will depend a lot on track temperature. As the track gets hotter, the potential of the tyres goes down, so teams will be looking up at the sky trying to see the big orange ball getting covered over by a cloud, and so they'll be looking at track temperature, and if there's a sign of it getting lower towards the end, then they'll tend to bunch their runs up towards the end.
Okay, could be a slow burner, as we've been saying. Patrick, thanks very much indeed for coming over. We appreciate your presence. Good luck this weekend.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
Well, I can tell you the warmth of Barcelona and the relatively low crowds are in stark contrast to the mayhem we all experienced at Silverstone. The total loss for the circuit could be £6 million, and now the governing body, the FIA, have summoned the organisers to appear at the next council meeting in June. But the fans who did get there, and a very large ITV audience, were awarded with an excellent home win.
Away well, Frentzen second, and Schumacher sprinting up alongside the two McLarens. Coulthard's the leader of the two McLarens in third and fourth. Michael had the best of the start and then had to yield. That makes a change. Coulthard is past the Ferrari. David Coulthard, for the second consecutive year, leads the British Grand Prix. That's Barrichello's spun. And Frentzen goes through, the lead is spun, Frentzen takes the lead, and surely Coulthard and the two Williams have got a chance to come through there too.
I want to keep an eye on Frentzen and the two Williamses, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have to stop again. I think this is McLaren's day.
Frentzen does have to stop again. That strategy of Jordan's has blown it for them today. It's turned out to be completely wrong.
What a cracking drive from Jensen.
I think Frentzen's got a problem. Frentzen came out of Abbey chicane with a misfire. Maybe he's lost hydraulic pressure too. Oh look, Trulli goes through. Trulli makes a move into Priory. Villeneuve, I think, with some kind of braking problem.
Mighty close now. David Coulthard wins the British Grand Prix by just 1.4 seconds from Mika Häkkinen, and McLaren 1-2. Enjoy it, David. You have deserved every drop of it.
And so Michael Schumacher's lead is 20 points as Coulthard overtakes Häkkinen. Then it's Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher. Fisichella hasn't scored for the last couple of races. The Silverstone maximum for McLaren has improved their position. This is a great circuit for them as well. Williams, as we've been saying, a clear third above Benetton and Jordan. All right, let's take a closer look at the Catalunya circuit, a very familiar territory for all the teams. They test here regularly. Ferrari were even here last week and they went quickest. Now, Martin Brundle is with a man who lives round the corner and is hoping to score points in his home Grand Prix for the first time.
Pedro, you're a local boy. I'm very jealous. This is your local racetrack.
Yeah, it's my local racetrack, but I think it's the local racetrack for everyone because we've been testing so much, all the teams here, that I think there's no advantage of being my track.
Yeah, it's a fabulous place. So we've come into the first S-bend, turns 1 and 2, 195 miles an hour, about 70 miles an hour on the way through, and accelerating hard up the hill here into turn 3. About 130 miles an hour where we are now, but this corner for me is very unusual because it's so long. How do you find it?
Well, it looks very different from this point of view when you're walking than when you're on the car. Now it looks like if it's going to be flat, easily flat. Yeah. But once you're in the car, it's a fourth gear corner, very, very long, hard on the neck. It's nearly flat with low fuel and new tires, but just so long, it's difficult to predict where you're going to end up on the exit.
Braking down from 180 miles an hour into turn 4 here. Another corner that wants to bite you right at the finish before you switch across the track into the downhill braking zone of turn 5, just 55 miles an hour. The next corner Pedro wanted to talk about is turn 9, Campsa. Arrive at 155 miles an hour, lose just 30 of those to take the apex at 125. Tricky corner though, Pedro.
Very difficult because you come here very fast. It's a very fast corner also, and very bumpy. And what I try is just to position the car completely to the left. I normally have a look at this point, the end of the exit curb. I normally brake around 10 meters. It depends on fuel loads and tires, as you know. And just try to get a very good exit, put full power on the apex, get a very clean exit because you have a very long straight. There's very little to gain on the entry, but a lot to lose.
185 miles an hour before braking very heavily into turn 10, La Cacta. Stay inside. It's very difficult to put the power down as it constantly turns left before catapulting into 11, Bank Sabadell. Now my favourite part of the track. So Pedro, pouring out of turn 12 up to 160 miles an hour into, unlucky for some, turn 13. And you barely lift the throttle, do you, as you make your way through here?
Yeah, just a little lift with a little bit of left foot braking, keeping the throttle maximum open and carrying a lot of speed in, a lot of speed out. Have a long straight, using the exit curb 100% until the grass. Typical corner in qualifying, you just have to go for it.
But you have total belief the car's going to stick, because this black line tells the story. You just look at halfway through the corner, you're convinced you're going to fly off the road, aren't you? And then there's enough grip somehow to finish the corner.
Yeah, it's true. You just have so much grip on the exit of this corner, and you just also have the exit curb to rely on. That's the key thing, I think, of this really going very fast out.
Well, this is one of the most physical circuits on the Grand Prix calendar, but it's a thrilling one to drive. Thank you, Pedro, for your insight into a lap of the Catalunya circuit.
It's a physical circuit, and it's a very windy circuit as well at the moment, Tony. As we can see, problems for the drivers that causes, particularly here.
Yeah, because the cars are so aerodynamically sensitive, those winds just come straight across the straight here, and they can affect the performance of the car. The front end of the car can go away suddenly. But it is very difficult to overtake here. Despite the long straight, and probably one of the most classic incidents people remember was 91, was Mansell and Senna going along sort of inches apart right down to the bottom. But even at the bottom when they get there, there's a chicane, and it's very difficult to find a way through.
So good qualifying place is all important. Let's pop down to the grid and have a word with Jordan's technical director, that is Mike Gascoigne, and he's talking to Louise Goodman.
Jim, this is, as you know, without doubt, the most popular track when it comes to winter testing. Jordan have done about 8,000 kilometres here since January. Mike, how does that affect things when you actually get down to Barcelona for the race?
Well, obviously, we've made our tyre choice. We've got a pretty good setup, so we don't have to do so much running. We didn't do much running yesterday. Heinz Harald only did one timed lap. So we look to save the tyres, and hopefully that'll pay off for having new tyres in the race tomorrow.
So technically speaking, does it make things a bit boring for you?
No, I mean, it stops us having all the dramas that we normally have, hopefully. But, you know, it just means we know where we are and we don't have to worry about it so much.
And does that mean that this afternoon we get a much closer qualifying session?
I think you'll see things pretty much as normal. Normally over the 2 days we get things pretty sorted out. Here it's just a bit more relaxed to get it sorted out.
Now, on another note, it was announced last week that you're leaving Jordan. Why are you leaving? Where are you going? Tell us the news.
Well, I've signed a contract to join Renault and Benetton. That's not for a year's time. I'm with Jordan until the middle of next year, and obviously at the moment only concentrating on getting the best out of this year's car.
Normally somebody in your position, it's a fairly high, well, it's a very high level technical position. Normally if it's announced you're going to another team, they tend to sort of move you out the way straight away, but you're staying with the team. Why is that?
Well, I made it very clear to both Benetton and to Eddie that you know, I'll honour my contract. I'm very committed to Jordan. This is my car, and I want to make sure we get to where we should be in the championship this year, which is 3rd place.
Have a good session.
Thanks very much.
Jordan looking for a late surge. Well, that takes us to our latest look inside the F1 rulebook. We call it Inside Track, and this week we look at some of the bits and pieces on the cars that aren't there for the driver's benefit.
Welcome to this week's look at the rule book. Now, there are several items that have to be designed and installed into a Formula One car that are not for use by either the team themselves or the driver. In fact, they're for the marshals and the FIA to use. This is a good example. Article 9 says there must be a button at the front of the cockpit which the marshals can easily access and press that pulls in the clutch, disengages the clutch. When the car has spun off or crashed and they want to move it out of the way, they can depress this and easily wheel the car away to make sure we don't have to have a safety car or a red flag procedure. Part of Article 14 says there must also be a switch accessible to the marshals in a horizontal plane that they can get hold of with a hook that they carry that switches off all the fuel pumps and the electrics of the car. And as part of the chassis, there must be this slot where they can feed in a strap for when they need to lift the car away from an incident. You'll be impressed to know this is a Dash 2 fitting. Now, Article 6 says that must be in place for the FIA to take at least 1 litre of fuel out of the car for very careful analysis to check the legality. Now, also in this black box, the engine control unit, there's some software that if a car begins to spin, it disengages the clutch and hopefully keeps the engine alive so the driver can regain the track. Now, if that happens in a big accident, maybe again the driver's unconscious, the engine could be screaming away. So the FIA dictate, also in this black box, there must be some software that switches that engine off after 10 seconds. Now, none of these things help the performance of the car or the team, but they're absolutely critical for safety.
Thank you, Martin. David Coulthard has never been on pole in Spain. He's been going very well, though, in practice. You be sure to rejoin us in Barcelona for the qualifying session. And this is us in Barcelona. Our little studio there. Little Swiss Family Robinson hut that you just saw. You rejoin us for the qualifying session for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix. It's a very pleasant 22 degrees, and as Patrick Head has been telling us, the teams are hoping for a spot of precious cloud cover. Let's join Martin Bundle and say a very good afternoon to Murray Walker.
And this is me in Barcelona. Track temperature going up. 24 degrees it is now. And let's be absolutely clear about one thing at Barcelona. Qualifying as far forward as possible truly matters here. A lot of circuits are difficult to pass on. This one is extremely difficult. Mika Häkkinen, pole position last year. Mika Häkkinen won the race last year and the year before, and David Coulthard was second to him both of those years. Michael Schumacher, though, in the Ferrari seems to be on top of things so far this year, because this morning he went round in the new 2000 Ferrari exactly to the nearest 1,000th of a second, 1 second faster than Mika Häkkinen's pole position last year. And his teammate Rubens Barrichello was third fastest, and they sandwiched David Coulthard, who really is looking, notwithstanding the terrible problems he's had in the last few days, in very good form.
Yes, the chat in the paddock really is the Ferrari faster or is the McLaren the best car out there? I don't think we've seen absolutely a clear-cut answer on that. They're certainly, thankfully, a lot closer than they have been in the previous 2 years, where McLaren really could easily have won this race by a lap or more. And so Schumacher has some pace, Barrichello not far behind. Ralf Schumacher going very well in the Williams, and it's certainly not a cut and dried case as to who's going to be on the pole or even on the front row for this weekend's Grand Prix.
Well, as you see, we're getting them out good and early. I was worried, as usual, that we'd probably have about half an hour with nobody on the track. But Bridgestone told me that they're expecting quite a few drivers out early to put it in a banker, that is to say, a lap time that will guarantee them a place on the grid, and then they'll try to improve on that subsequently, depending how the weather goes. Now, since I started talking to you, the temperature has gone up yet further. Martin and I are always a bit suspicious about the track temperatures, but if you're getting consistent moves one way or the other, I think you can take it as read that things are changing. And Alesi may well have done something very sensible. He's in the Prost. This car now seems to have reliability. What they're looking for is speed. He's got out good and early, and obviously he's the fastest man on the track so far, with that temperature creeping up all the time. Now, this morning, as I said, David Coulthard was extremely quick. The other very significant thing, I think, was Schumacher, not Michael Schumacher, but his brother Ralph, because in this magnificent Williams BMW, which is shaking us all rigid this year in comparison with expectations, he was 5th fastest and for a long time was 2nd fastest. Yes, the McLarens and the Ferraris are continuing to dominate, but not by all that much, with Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW very close to them. And as a matter of fact, they're all pretty close, because as you heard from Pedro de la Rosa, they do an enormous amount of testing here.
Yes, and Alesi, I think, working less hard at the steering wheel than he has done in previous races in this Prost. Doesn't have to correct the car so much on the way into the corner, but still, the car, look, he's still having to fight the car to get the power down. And once again, had to steer away from the corner there as he turned in. Had the steering wheels pointed in the wrong direction there momentarily. So he still hasn't got this car absolutely perfectly sorted out. And there's no circuit in the world where that shows up more than Barcelona. One fast, long corner leading into yet another fast, long corner. You cannot overdrive a car, Anna. You cannot pick it up and carry it too much. It's got to be with you. It's too high a speed, then there's no space to get away with it. That's 7/10 slower than Alesi was this morning. You can see he's already backed off. They will all be running 4 runs of 3 laps. An out as ever, 1 flying and an in.
Well, this is the circuit. We had some rain at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, but my goodness, when it rains here, it really, really rains. We were expecting it to be wet today. It hasn't been. You're looking at Rubens Barrichello, who led so well at Silverstone, 3rd fastest this morning. But one of the wettest races I have ever seen was here a few years ago, which was magnificently dominated by Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari in 1998. Appalling weather conditions, and he absolutely cruised home. So 1 out so far. You're looking at John Alesi in the Prost coming in. Here's a replay.
Yes, that's what I was telling you about, where Alesi turns in the corner, look, and immediately has to turn back out again as the back end tries to step out, even with a simple downshift going in there. So still the aerodynamic centre of pressure moving around underneath that car as Alesi takes to the pit lane. They practice the pit in here very heavily. It's quite a long run before they get to the speed line, which is now. You can see the black skid marks after that, where they've all been practicing, and down to 60 kilometres an hour just in qualifying, 80 kilometres, 50 miles an hour during the race. It's a long pit lane at 60 k's an hour.
And that looks like one of the Jordans going out as Alesi comes in. You just see the flash of yellow along the bottom of your screen. Didn't see which one it was. We'll soon identify it for you. And it's Heinz-Harald Frentzen, sat next to him at dinner last night. Very nice chap. He was very cool, calm and collected as ever. Left fairly early to get a decent night's rest. And the Jordans now seem to have overcome the gearbox problem which has plagued them through this season. Frentzen was 7th fastest this morning, just about a second off the pace.
I didn't get a chance to find out why he broke down this morning and missed the end of the session, Murray. Did you get any information on that?
No, I'm sorry, Martin. I didn't. He just stopped. I watched him while it happened. He just stopped and rolled off the circuit. I don't know whether he was low on fuel, but it didn't look like anything very serious to me. Heinz-Harald Frentzen then from Germany, one of the 4 German drivers in this race, Nick Heidfeld, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and the Schumacher brothers, of course, in respectively Jordan, Ferrari and the Prost cars and the Williams.
Yes, when I was driving in Formula 1 many years, there were no German drivers at all, and of course at the moment they've been very much at the sharp end and dominating on occasions. When I first came into Formula 1 there were 13 Italian drivers in Formula 1, and now there's just 2. It really is pretty much driven by where the money's coming from with regard to how many particular nationals are in Formula 1 at any time, but it does swap around quite quickly.
Well, while the Jordan is out on the track, it's worth registering that the Arrows team, that's David Coulthard, the Arrows team going extremely well here after all the work that they did on the new car for this year in 1999. Pedro de la Rosa, that you saw talking to Martin about the circuit, was an excellent 8th fastest this morning in the top 10, and Jos Verstappen, his teammate, was only just out of it, 11th fastest. Now, Frentzen is on his quick lap.
Yes, it was an electrical problem this morning, apparently, as to why Frentzen stopped out on the racetrack. So you were right, Murray, it wasn't anything too serious, but it would have been very serious had it been Grand Prix day. So already Frentzen way ahead of Jean Alesi's one and only flying lap earlier on in the session. And coming now into what must be 7 and 8. Always riding the curve there, trying to get the power on. Now you're blind over the crest. He launches this Jordan in. I noticed it earlier in the lap too when you were talking, Murray. Now, big problem that Kamser just came out of. If they run wide there, they kick dust up onto the track. It's the same in turn 13, the last corner. And I believe that's why a lot of the drivers will want to get an early banker run in, as you put it, Murray, because you can't. It's a long track. It's not going to rubber in much more now with just 12 laps apiece to go at. So they need to make sure somebody doesn't run wide and drag a lot of dirt back onto the racetrack. Just on the exit of this corner is always a place that's done.
So he goes fastest, a second faster than Jean Alesi, but the significant thing is that he's just 0.3 of a second slower than he went this morning. And I'm sorry to keep harping on this temperature thing, but the fact is that it is still going up, as a result of which you see David Coulthard getting in the car, you've seen Michael Schumacher putting on his helmet. It looks to me, with the sky overhead very clear and very blue, as you watch Marc Genet in the excellent Ford-powered Spanish Minardi, it looks to me as though we'll be going to see quite a few drivers out on the track before it gets even hotter.
That's the never-ending turn 3 we showed you, and the car's sort of almost doing a wall of death around the outside by the time they've understeered enough through the middle of the corner, and you're just hanging on, just hoping you've got just enough grip to hang on, and it's a relief to be straightening up on that white line. Now he's down into 5. It all looks very calm, so I'm assuming that Genet is on an in-lap.
Well, here's an excellent bit of news. I hope it keeps this way. Johnny Herbert, who was only 13th fastest this morning in the Jaguar, admittedly early days, only 10 minutes gone, he's on a very quick lap, which is going to take him, I believe, into provisional pole position, but with some 50 minutes still to go. And there is Johnny Herbert in the very distinctive Jaguar. I was talking to Neil Reslow, who's now taken over control of the team, and he was telling me that they think they've got the reliability problems bugged, and they're going to look now for speed. They've got it here at the moment. Johnny Herbert, second fastest to Frentzen.
Yes, but that's a disappointing time at 23.2. That's going to be well over a second and a half off of the ultimate pole position. The Jaguar, in my view, is the most beautiful car on the racetrack in Formula One, but it certainly, sadly, is not the fastest at the moment.
Frentzen fastest with 49 minutes still to go. Johnny Herbert second. Ricardo Zonta in the BAR is third fastest, but very disappointing this morning, only 21st. Jean Alesi, that you've already seen, fourth. Marc Genet, fifth quickest. So 5 out from the 22 who hopes to start this race. A lot still to come onto the track. And let me remind you all again that in order to qualify for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix, you've got to be within 107%. Johnny Herbert's got a loose wing end plate. Look, you can see it flapping about. It tucks itself underneath the wing. Something's broken off. And now Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR is on a quick lap.
I think it's the camera mount, isn't it, that's come off. I think Johnny's probably rumbled across the curb and lost the camera mount. It's hanging on by a cable, and he'll be in the pit lane this time. Hopefully it'll stay with him until he gets all the way, and that's unusual to see, in fact, but I'm pretty sure that's the nose camera that we've shown you recently.
Well, it's still Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the quickest in the Jordan, but as Martin has said, there's a long way to go and a long time to go. Check on the track temperature, 28 degrees. It is still going up. And Johnny is wheeled backwards into the garage. Let's have a look at that wing. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Martin. Well spotted. That's it. It is the camera mount, which has broken free as he went over the rumble strip, just hanging on by the cable. And here is Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR. Faster than he'd been in the first sector, fastest of all in the second sector, 0.2 of a second inside Heinz-Harald Frentzen's time. This was the man who at the British Grand Prix, was running well in the points until he struck a problem at the end. And this VAR with the new Honda engine is a very, very different motor car to last year's in its debut year. And Villeneuve moves up into provisional pole position, 22.3. That is 1/10 of a second faster than Frentzen, but 1/10 of a second is enough.
A lot of speculation in the press and certainly some activity behind the scenes in Formula One with Villeneuve and his future driving contract. Some people have views that he's already moved. Interesting to see, but I think there'll be some quite early action this year on the driver contract front, that's for sure.
Yeah, Villeneuve is rumoured to have moved, as you heard earlier on from Jim Rosenthal when he was probing, metaphorically, Patrick Head. There's even rumours that Jenson Button has signed for Williams next year. Everybody in Britain will be hoping that's true. And Ralf Schumacher, the man I was talking about as being the sensation of this meeting, in my opinion, so far, is really flying in the Williams BMW with 46 minutes still to go. He's gone through the first sector fastest of all. Here he is in the very distinctively liveried Williams BMW, which reminds us of the year that Nelson Piquet drove for Brabham with BMW power with exactly that livery. Funnily enough, no BMW round wall showing dramatically on the outside of the car. It's on Schumacher's helmet. Now, how is he going? He's going to be going into provisional pole position, I do believe, and the answer is yes, he does. The first man under 22, 1 minute 22, with that time of 1 minute 21.823, and already, just 13 minutes into the session, we've had 3 different men heading it. Frentzen in the Jordan, and then Villeneuve in the BAR, now Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, and we've still got Hakkinen to come out, Coulthard to come out, Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, and here is Barrichello, pole position at the British Grand Prix.
Yes, 1:21.8 there from Ralf Schumacher on current provisional pole is faster than Hakkinen's pole of last year. We used to do 1 minute 17s around there when we had decent tyres and a decent amount of downforce, and the cars were significantly more drivable than they are now. But nonetheless, that's still fantastic progress from the Williams team. Ralf last year did a 23.3, so Williams have found 1.5 seconds since last year already, and that's including installing a whole new engine in the car, Murray.
Yeah, and they've got a new second-generation engine. I was talking to Dr. Mario Tyson just before I came into the box, and he told me they've got a new second-generation engine coming along, like the Mercedes-Benz, like the Honda. It'll be even better than the current one, and Rubens Barrichello looks as though he's going to be provisional pole position holder number 4 in a few seconds' time. 44 minutes still to go, and Rubens Barrichello is faster in the first and second sectors than he's been, and anybody's been for that matter so far. Coming down to the last corner, turn 13, he can see the grid unfolding before him. Over the line he goes, Rubens Barrichello, 1:21.770, and that is the 4th provisional pole position holder, and we've got more to come, no doubt about that.
James has some news for us down in the pits.
Yeah, just reflecting on what you were talking about a second ago, Martin, with Ralph's time. And it's in fact a second slower than he did here last week, which is some indication of just how hot it is here this afternoon. But on Rubens Barrichello, I'm told, I was speaking to him just before, and he said apparently Ross Brawn has been really good to him this weekend. He's put his arm around his shoulder after the 2 disappointments that Rubens has suffered, hydraulic failures while leading the race at Silverstone and as well in Brazil. Apparently Ross has said to him that he's already done more for Ferrari in 4 races than Irvine did in 4 years. Praise indeed.
That'll please Eddie, but now Jacques Villeneuve, that you just saw as a provisional pole position holder in the pit lane there, is down to 4th fastest, because Jarno Trulli in the Jordan has gone ahead of him. His teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 5th place. Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, Trulli, Villeneuve, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Eddie Irvine is out on the track in the Jaguar, just completing the lap now. Irvine is 5th fastest, faster than Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yes, the reigning world champion. You saw him, Mika Hakkinen, coming onto the track. I think Coulthard's on the track too. Both McLarens out at the same time, which I always think is silly when teams do that, because if one goes off, it spoils the lap for the other, or if somebody else goes off altogether and the red flags come out, then both cars lose out at the same time. But anyway, that I know in the McLaren team, they're free to run their own individual policy in each car with regard to when they want to go out for traffic, etc., etc. But anyway, both of the McLarens on the racetrack. Jenson Button currently on a good lap too, that's going to pump him somewhere around Eddie Irvine in 5th or 6th place when he comes over the line. Now we picked him up now through the last 2 corners. Jenson, this is such a tough corner, this last one. It's brilliant fun, but it certainly takes some hanging on to. And Button goes 7th, yes, just behind Frentzen. So 22.6 for Jenson Button. Ralf Schumacher, his teammate, up in 2nd at the moment on a 1:21.8.
Excellent that for Jenson Button. He was 10th fastest this morning. He's 7th fastest at the present moment. 0.8 of a second off Rubens Barrichello's fastest time so far. And it's the first time in sort of competitive conditions that Jenson Button has driven here on this Barcelona circuit. Yes, he's had a lot of testing miles like everybody else, but when you get the pressure of actually having to qualify or race, it can be a very different thing. How is Mika Häkkinen doing? Well, the Finn now is on what he hopes is going to be the lap that moves him up into provisional pole position, but he'll have to do better than he's doing at the present moment. 4/100ths of a second off the pace. He can make that up, of course, in the remaining 2 sectors and more.
Now there's a few people around the paddock, just a few, keeping a close eye on Mika Häkkinen, because he was reasonably lacklustre during the Grand Prix at Silverstone, and has had reminded us very much of Spa last year, where Coulthard got away and Mika almost seemed to give up on it. And he's not really been at the sharp end of the pace all through free practice and this morning, Mika. Now we all know he is, of all of the drivers on the track, and I include Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen is the one that can hook up the hot lap. But it's curious, he seems just a little bit downbeat. But this lap is going to bury him, I think, a 21.5, 21.6 if he can just storm this last corner. And is going to put him, I'm sure he's going to be on the front row of the grid with this. Let's have a look. Has Mika Häkkinen done it? Yes, he has. 21.3. So a good end to the lap for Mika Häkkinen, and that's answered one of the early doubts anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah, but David Coulthard is right behind him, and David Coulthard was faster still in the 1st sector.
Yes, I think Coulthard
coming into the pits. Yeah, he's aborted the lap.
Yes.
Why would he have done that, Mark? He was fastest of all in the 1st sector.
I was just about to say, but he's not had a very good middle sector, Murray, because the time flashed up, and I think he knew that. Either he's got a little drama, or he caught some traffic or something. So I think Coulthard knew the lap was no good, so aborted to save the tyres. And no time yet for David Coulthard.
Well, one thing we haven't said so far, is that the man who is going against the grain, literally, in terms of tyre choice, is Michael Schumacher. Bridgestone, as usual, have brought 2 dry weather compound tyres here, the medium compound and the soft. Virtually everyone has opted for the soft, except, notably, Michael Schumacher, who's on the medium and harder compound, as are the 2 Arrows drivers, Pedro de la Rosa and Jos Verstappen. And Michael Schumacher has yet to come, well, he's done 1 lap actually. He hasn't done a full timed lap yet. We're riding with Pedro de la Rosa, who is 9th quickest at the moment in the Arrows, and he was 8th quickest this morning. This car dramatically different from the one they had last year. It's got the Supertech engine as opposed to Arrow's own engine in 1999. The engine is a lot better, the car is a lot better. Pedro de la Rosa, the Spaniard, he's in his home country and he's now got a season's experience behind him, and he's not happy with that lap because he turns in. 38 minutes to go. Mika Häkkinen, 0.4 of a second faster than Barrichello, just over 0.4 quicker than Ralf Schumacher. Trulli is 4th, Villeneuve is 5th, and Irvine is 6th. News from James Allen.
Just what David Coulthard didn't want. Something is definitely afoot. At the moment, he's still sitting in his race car. The mechanics are looking around the back of it. He looks pretty calm, but Ron Dennis, the team boss, is looking quite agitated. Obviously, he wanted David very badly to get a number on the board here as early as possible to steady him down after his extraordinary aeroplane accident in midweek. But the mechanics are currently preparing the spare car for Coulthard. So there is some kind of trembling at the back of this race car of Coulthard's, and I'll keep on top of it and let you know what happens.
Now we're watching Michael Schumacher, who's on his quick lap. He's done his out lap. He's on the third of 12 laps that he will be doing this afternoon. Out of turn 2 into that long 180-degree turn 3, doing about 145 miles an hour as he exits it, builds up to 170 miles an hour, then down into third gear. As you can see, he's faster than Mika Häkkinen in the first sector, goes round turn 4, a double 90, now down into the left-hander turn 5, starts dropping downhill a bit now towards turn 7, which is the lowest point on this circuit. It's actually got far more gradient than it would appear to have looking at television. Now he's climbing up again towards Kapsa, the 5th gear, 120 mile an hour corner, and he's completed half a lap, and he's still 8/100ths of a second inside Mika Häkkinen's time. I remind you, the pole position front row of the grid here for the Spanish Grand Prix is of vital importance, and Michael Schumacher last year was not there.
Well, this Ferrari's got very, very good basic speed around now, because this is not a particularly good lap from Michael Schumacher. 2 corners where he didn't really get to the apex at all, and I think that's cost him that provisional pole at the moment. Turn 4, he was nowhere near the apex he wanted, and certainly the same through turn 7. But Michael's first lap on the board, he's in 2nd place. We'll be back very shortly.
33.5 minutes to go, all quiet on the Western Front. Nearly everybody is in the pits. Just Ralf Schumacher is on the track. Jarno Trulli is out on the track. Johnny Herbert, Heidfeld are out. So that will be advantageous to them. Comparatively little traffic as in comes Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen is still quickest.
Yes, while you're away in the break, nothing significant happens, certainly visually, but Michael Schumacher elected to do 2 flying laps, so he's now restricted himself this afternoon to just 3 runs. At least that's going to give him a total of 6 flying laps, whereas the 4-run solution only gives you 4 flying laps, but each time with a fresh set of tyres. Michael obviously thinks he's got a chance of getting a faster lap of the 2nd lap. Well, he did go faster on the 2nd lap, only by 1/10 of a second, and did not improve his grid position. He just moved slightly closer to Mika Häkkinen.
I had someone who should know saying to me he's the only one in the field who's got the brains to think of that.
Well, he's certainly a very mentally driven person, is our Michael, and he's got good people around him as well to help him try and think outside the circle, I think, is one of those unpleasant expressions people use, or a bit of lateral thinking, and hey, how can we do this slightly differently and get an advantage?
32 minutes to go, and we have had 5 different people in provisional pole position already. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Jacques Villeneuve, Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello and Mika Häkkinen, who is still there. James, what's the news?
Reflecting on what you're saying there, what Martin was saying, in fact, my information is that Michael's brother Ralf was also very seriously contemplating running the harder tyre today. They've obviously been talking a lot since last week's test coming here this weekend, and Ralf has hardly used the softer tyres throughout this weekend, but at last minute I think obviously someone at Williams, or maybe the lap times that Jensen was pulling, made Ralf decide to switch to the softer tyre. But it's obviously a ruse that Michael's had up his sleeve. A quick update for you on the McLaren situation. Coulthard is out of his race car. There does seem to be something wrong with it, and he is switching to the spare car. There's an atmosphere of controlled panic amongst the mechanics and the engineers. Coulthard staying calm, though. Obviously, he's got his eyes focused on the main prize.
Yes, unfortunately for Coulthard, that T-car is not allowed to be used at any other time until qualifying starts. So it's about to turn its first wheel of the weekend. Not what he wanted at all. Maybe for his 2nd or 3rd run he could have used it ideally, but that's going to be a totally fresh experience for Coulthard, but I guess he's had a few of those this week.
Well, just about halfway through the 1-hour session, and Fisichella has still not qualified. He's out now on the track, and I've little doubt that he will qualify, because he went fairly well this morning. 12th fastest in the Benetton, which is shortly to become the Renault team sponsored by Benetton, as opposed to the Benetton team sponsored by Benetton. That'll be the year after next. You've heard from Mike Gascoigne that he's going there as the technical director. And Flavio Briatore, who is in charge, is casting his experienced eye all round the paddock, looking for good people. Plenty of them, some time to go yet before it's Renault. And now you're watching the Prost of Nick Heidfeld, who was actually faster than his more experienced teammate, John Alesi, the most experienced man in Formula One these days, Alesi, this morning, that is. Nick Heidfeld, the German Formula 3000 champion of 1999. He's currently 15th fastest, but he's much slower on this lap than he was on his previous quick lap. The top 10 so far, with 29.5 minutes to go. Häkkinen and Schumacher, row 1. Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, row 2. Trulli in the Jordan and Frentzen, his teammate, row 3. Jacques Villeneuve and Eddie Irvine, that's a good one, in the Jaguar. I think the highest the Jaguar have had a starter this year was 7th for Eddie Irvine. And the 5th row of the grid, Jenson Button in the 2nd Williams is there, 1.2 seconds off Häkkinen's pace, accompanied by Fisichella, who's just moved up to that 10th position. So everybody is safely in, but David Coulthard is 22nd and last at the present moment as we look into the McLaren pit. He's only done 2 laps, he's got 10 laps to go, he's got 28.5 minutes to do them, so there's not a problem there, but it would be nice to see him out on the track very soon. He really, really deserves to be there.
Watching the stuff flutter past the door there of the McLaren garage and dust and debris, the drivers are always talking about the wind being critical around here, because a lot of high-speed corners at some point, necessarily with a racetrack, you end up back where you started. You've got to go through whichever way the wind is blowing. You've got to turn through it. It unsettles the aerodynamics of these cars quite easily, and the wind speed has doubled to 2.1 meters per second since the beginning of the session. And as soon as you get any kind of wind speed around here, the drivers start whinging of the car's not doing what it should, as Barrichello drops a wheel into the dirt in 7 and the arrow stalls.
And the track temperature starts to creep up again. It had gone down a little and it's now back up to 28 degrees, which is as high as it's been this afternoon. So Häkkinen still quickest. McLaren, and Häkkinen of course is Mr. Pole position these days. He's got 24 of them, which is actually more than Michael Schumacher, 1 more than Michael Schumacher. We're watching the British Grand Prix pole position holder, the 3rd in his career, Rubens Barrichello, as he too aborts the lap. That's his 6th lap. He's had 6, he's got 6 to come. He comes into the pit lane in the Ferrari, hits the pit lane speed limiter, which now operates off the front wheels as a result of the revised electronic regulations, and turns in.
And he's forwarded into the weighbridge area where he will see a red light. If he passes that, he's disqualified from the weekend. And Verstappen, you see now, he's just gone up to 10th place, has Jos Verstappen, with a 122.6. Barrichello in the weighbridge area on a 121.7. As I've said to you before, the big drama of going in there is none of your mechanics are allowed in there. It's like a parc fermé. And you lose vital information on your tyre pressures, how the pressures are around the track, and they're still done in the old-fashioned way on a Formula 1 car, despite the technology of a pressure gauge. The tyres are filled with nitrogen and not normal air, as Verstappen drops a wheel in the dirt. That's what I was talking to you about earlier on, dragging dirt onto the racetrack. They use nitrogen to make sure there's no vapour in it. Normal air has a content of vapour, and as soon as the tyres start running at 90 degrees centigrade, of course, the air starts to expand if it's got any vapour in it. But you lose that vital piece of information when you're pushed into the weighbridge area, as Verstappen is about to spoil what I think is the outlap, actually, of his teammate De La Rosa.
Well, there's 5 different constructors who've got cars in the top 9 at the present moment, covered by 1.2 seconds. And that little margin is very significant. And news from Louise Goodman.
I've been down at Jaguar checking out this business with the camera which we saw falling off Johnny's car. I've had a look at the front wing. The mountings are totally sheared off. I've never seen that happen before. The camera has been running that position on other cars, but interestingly, it's never been running that position on the Jaguar before. No signs of Johnny hitting anything, so I can only assume it must have been something to do with the vibrations in the front wing off that Jaguar, but it's an interesting one anyway.
Thank you for that candid camera report there, Louise. And we're back on track now with De La Rosa heading towards turn 4 from his overhead camera. And you get him very early into 4, then the car just starts walking its way towards the outside. You're having to correct the slide a little bit, and there's the line to tell you that's far enough, thank you. In the rain, we've all been through that gravel trap so many times, because you just can't stop into what looks like a very silly and easy little corner, into the little hill there of 7, bring it in early. Now get on the power, because you can cheat and go across the curb and a little bit of grass. And this is Camps. De La Rosa talked us through this corner, and it tucks in just at the end, look. And now you can quite easily head down into what is a huge stopping area. The car's got tremendous deceleration there, and then you've just got to stay inside and feed as much power as you can get in. You can see him balancing the throttle with the steering wheel and catapult your way then into 11, and 12 falls away from you. Let's see if he lifts the throttle at all. No, he did not, did he? And then down into the famous 13, and we've gone off board now, unfortunately. I'd love to have gone through there with De La Rosa. He goes over the line, and he is in 9th place.
Excellent, excellent lap. Very interesting situation as De La Rosa moves into the top 10. Last year, his first year in Formula 1, he didn't have much competition from his own team. The Japanese driver Tora Takagi, who has retired from Formula 1 and gone back to Formula Nippon in Japan, was his teammate. But now he's got Jos Verstappen, the Dutchman, the very experienced and aggressive Dutchman, in the team with him. And Verstappen is 11th at the quickest moment at the moment. De La Rosa is 9th, and between them there is just 1/100th of a second as Mika Häkkinen crosses the line. That is, he's into his 6th lap now, so he's done, or will have done, his half his allocation. They're allowed a maximum of 12 laps. He's fastest so far. Michael Schumacher significantly is still in the pit lane, and he's only done 4 out of 12 laps.
Well, either the sound is not dubbed on the picture correctly here by the Spanish TV company, or Häkkinen was still busy shifting down in the middle of turn 1. I suspect he hadn't got any such problems, because as you can see, he's very, very fast so far. So Häkkinen then through 5. Fantastic traction for him coming out of there then. It's a sweeper into this next section where you've just got to be smooth. You must not brake too late, and then over the blind crest at Campsa. And bumpy on the exit. There's the dust I keep telling you about. They drag back on the racetrack, and now heading towards the end of the lap, Murray.
Well, he is as quick as the previous quickest man through that second sector, notwithstanding just putting a wheel at the back off the track and kicking up a few stones. I don't know that he's going to be quicker on this lap. He's a 1/10 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher at the present moment. With 22 minutes to go, he's not happy. Into the pit lane, aborts the lap. Mika Häkkinen still fastest. Michael Schumacher second. Rubens Barrichello third. Ralf Schumacher a superb 4th. Trulli, Frentzen, Villeneuve, Irvine. 9th is De La Rosa. 10th is Button.
Yes, David Coulthard at the back of the grid at the moment. We think they found... Coulthard goes 3rd. Coulthard out of view of the cameras on a 21.5. We think they found the fuel problem on his car. He was in the race car. So now they finally picked up Coulthard, but that's the end of his first hot lap as they were following Häkkinen into the pits. And David Coulthard up onto the 2nd row of the grid. Just 0.2 of a second off a pole at this time. Michael Schumacher, as ever, seems to be between him and Häkkinen, who's currently on the pole.
People were saying to me, is David Coulthard going to be all right after that terrible, terrible air crash of his? And I said, yes, I'm quite sure he is. A, I'm positive that he will compete. B, of course, once you've got in the car and you're concentrating 101% on making it get round the circuit as fast as you possibly can, you have no thought for anything else, and you can't have any thought for anything else.
I'm told from a source that I trust implicitly that the father of one of the pilots of the air crash rang the McLaren team to send a message to say, we want David Coulthard on the pole position and go for it, which is a very nice thing to do.
Here, thank you very much indeed for that, sir. And David Coulthard is third fastest at the present moment. He's not going to improve on that lap. As you see, he runs wide. That's Mika Häkkinen running wide onto the rumble strip. But David Coulthard's challenge now, as Michael Schumacher comes out of the garage with 20 minutes and 8 laps to go. Coulthard's challenge is to get on the front row of the grid and displace Michael Schumacher. Now, David Coulthard is not going to be content with second position on the grid. The battle between him and Mika Häkkinen, for that pole position is just as intense as it is between any other drivers in the race. He's currently third, with Michael Schumacher that you're looking at second, Mika Häkkinen in pole position, 20 minutes to go.
Yes, see, the difference, you may think, oh well, Häkkinen would start a fraction ahead of Coulthard, or Coulthard a fraction ahead of Häkkinen, does it really matter? There's other aspects, as with anything in Formula 1, it's always more complicated than you think. Certainly in many teams, and in the McLaren team, would be different at Ferrari, because Schumacher would get the call on everything at all times. But, you know, the fastest McLaren driver gets the choice of when he wants to stop in the race. He's got the clean side of the grid, he's got the nod into the first corner, I would say, in the unspoken word. So there are many issues as to which one of the teammates in many of these teams it affects them on race day much more than you might believe.
Well, Michael Schumacher approaching the start of his quick lap, hopefully from his point of view to move back into the pole position that he's already occupied this afternoon. Meantime, his teammate Rubens Barrichello is on his 6th lap. He's in 4th position. As we've come to expect these days, it's the 2 Ferraris and the 2 McLarens on the front 2 rows of the grid. The order in which they're going to be there is anybody's guess. Now, here is Michael Schumacher starting quick lap number 7. This is his 7th lap. The target in the first sector is on the left. Mika Häkkinen's time, 23.806 seconds out of turn 2, out of turn 3, into the long turn 3.
Yes, and Michael Schumacher still didn't make the apex into turn 1 that time, fighting the car, so he's getting near the limit. I think if he hooks one up, he's quite capable of sticking this on pole, but Michael definitely somewhere near his ragged edge. But look, it's a good first sector, 23.6, so but this is not where Häkkinen's been quick. It's that middle part, and particularly the end, where Häkkinen's been quick. But we know from Michael's earlier lap, he made a couple of small errors, and if he can collect those up and correct them, he's got a good chance, I think, of taking provisional pole. Up through Kampse, hard on the power look, and absolutely no problems at all as Michael heads down to the big braking zone.
And he's chosen a good time because the temperature's coming down, and so is his lap time. Half a second inside Mika Häkkinen's time. This is going to be a meteoric lap. Last year's pole position time, 1 minute 22.088. Mika Häkkinen has already gone 7/10 of a second faster than that, and it looks as though Michael Schumacher is going to go faster still and throw down the gauntlet to the McLaren driver. And yes, he's done it. 1 minute 20.974. Michael Schumacher goes back into pole position, and he has got 5 laps to go as Mika Häkkinen placidly and impassively looks at the monitor with the times in front of him and thinks, I've got to go out there and do better still.
And what Häkkinen is looking at are 3 figures, the 3 section times. He's a 10th slower in the first section, 3/10 slower in the midsection, and a 10th faster than Schumacher in the last bit. So Häkkinen knows now where he's got to go out and pull something out of the bag. That was a cracking lap from Michael Schumacher, and he's still got a bit left in my view.
Now look at Rubens Barrichello. He's 3/10 out with 2 sectors completed. This could move him. This might just move him onto the front row of the grid with his Ferrari teammate. And if he does, that will be very, very bad news for McLaren to have the 2 Scarlet Ferraris ahead of him. It looks as though James, what's the news? Quickly.
Big fire in the pit lane. Nick Heidfeld's Prost has just come in. There's a big fire. It's out now. but it's right in front of the Ferrari garage, right where Michael Schumacher pulls his car out when he drives out of the garage.
Thank you, James. We're looking at Heidfeld now. We're looking at his car as you see the marshal putting the fire extinguisher powder onto it. So Nick Heidfeld's Prost caught fire, as you heard from James Allen. You didn't hear from me as you watch Heidfeld walking away. The Rubens Barrichello is now in third position ahead of David Coulthard. So it is Ferrari McLaren. Here's a playback of Heidfeld stopping at the pit lane, and woof! A great burst of flame. I think it's probably just an oil fire, Martin.
Yeah, just a bit of oil burning off at the back there. There's obviously a union loose or something like that, some kind of connector. But no big drama there, really. More of a drama for Ferrari. They've now got to find a way of getting Michael Schumacher's car in the garage and Barrichello's car in, but they'll soon fix that. A little drama, but there's another toy they made earlier for him back in the garage. We're going to take a break.
Just under 13 minutes to go of the 60-minute qualifying session for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher is still fastest, 0.4 of a second faster than Mika Häkkinen. But you remember that cloud cover that Patrick Head was talking to Jim Rosenthal about in the studio before qualifying began? Well, it appears to be appearing, if you follow me, because the track temperature has fallen from 28 degrees to 23 degrees. Good news.
Well, that onboard lap you were watching at De La Rosa's was a fine one. It's moved him up into 7th place in the Arrows. So De La Rosa, using his local knowledge and a bit of extra Spanish adrenaline, has got the Arrows up into the top 10.
Now, is Mika Häkkinen benefiting from that cloud cover and reduced track temperature? The answer is, in the first sector he certainly was, because he's gone faster there than he has been before, albeit 1/10 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher had been. Now, I would expect Schumacher to be coming out pretty quickly. We've got 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the session. Schumacher has got 5 laps left. Häkkinen's gone faster than he had been in the second sector. Now, is he going to move into pole position again? No, 3/10 of a second, nearly 4/10 of a second slower than Schumacher, who I think has got something in reserve if the track stays cooler.
So Schumacher laid down the gauntlet. Mika Häkkinen could not respond. It was a reasonably tidy lap. So Häkkinen, 3.5 of a second. That's a lot. I think you find that's Coulthard about to start what's effectively his second flying lap because of that technical drama earlier on. So Coulthard now back into 4th place as Barrichello passed him. Coulthard now needing to hook one up.
Remember what I was saying about how important pole position here is in Spain. Mika Häkkinen has had pole position in the first 3 races this year. Rubens Barrichello, that's the Prost Peugeot engine letting go. Rubens Barrichello was pole position in Britain. Michael Schumacher has not had a pole position since the Japanese Grand Prix last year, after his amazing return after breaking his leg at Silverstone in 1999 to Malaysia, where he took pole position. And Schumacher is in pole position now with just over 10 minutes to go. Schumacher's got 5 laps, Häkkinen's got 4 laps, Rubens Barrichello is 3rd, has got 4 laps. David Coulthard is 4th and has got 5 laps. Ralf Schumacher is the top non-Ferrari or McLaren driver. Jarno Trulli, an excellent 6th for Jordan.
Well, this is not going to take pole position for Coulthard, but he may just nick back 3rd from, or possibly even 2nd from teammate Häkkinen. So Coulthard must somehow not lift the throttle through any of the last 2 corners to be on pole. That's not going to happen, I don't think. But let's see if he can get it up onto the front row, or if he can just bump that Ferrari back. And he doesn't. He's 0.6 of a second shy of bumping Barrichello out of 3rd. And again, another disappointed McLaren driver. David's got another shot though.
As we watch Giancarlo Fisichella, 14th position in the Benetton. He's ahead of his teammate Alexander Wurz. Benetton did well earlier in the season, 2nd place in the Brazilian Grand Prix for Fisichella, but they've gone off the boil a bit recently, notwithstanding the fact that we can expect them to have improvements in their Supertech engines from Renault. Now, what's he done? Nothing.
Yeah, as Pat Simmons, the technical director of Benetton, said they've got 3 bogey circuits. They were the same last year, and they're all on the bounce, and they're at the 3rd of the 3 of them now here in Barcelona. They're expecting to be much stronger in Nürburgring. That's a bit of a curious situation, because usually your cars either works or it doesn't work, but they seem to have tracks they prefer. But Frentzen has moved up to 8th in the 2nd of the Jordans. Teammate Trulli is 6th, so that's bumped De La Rosa and Verstappen, the 2 Arrows drivers, now just filling out the top 10 in 9th and 10th. So Eddie Irvine 12th, Johnny Herbert, Jensen Button rather 14th, and Johnny Herbert 15th. Coulthard is only 4th at the moment, so Brits not having a good day here, Murray.
No, they're not. 8 minutes to go, and it's looking pretty fraught as far as McLaren are concerned, although we all know from having seen it many, many times in the past that Mika Häkkinen, like the late Ayrton Senna, has this incredible ability to deep and produce a lap quicker than anybody else has done, right at the last knockings of the qualifying session, and that is 8 minutes away.
Well, I saw Häkkinen make a mistake going into 11 and the back end stepped out a bit. We know Michael sort of missed the apex in turn 1 on his best lap, but then had a super lap towards the end. I think Michael's got every bit as much left in his pocket, which is a 10th or 2 tenths, as Mika Häkkinen has, and I would think Michael really must be sitting there quite confidently at the moment, expecting to start this race on pole position, but they've all got a run left. All the key players. The only person who's now finished his runs is Frentzen down in 8th place. Jordan again disappointing slightly here, but there's 7 minutes and 15 seconds remaining.
Yeah, very disappointing for Frentzen. Less disappointing for Trulli, his teammate, who is in 6th position on the 3rd row of the grid. But I think it's going to go a bit quiet for the moment now. There'll be a great outpouring of motor cars onto the track with about 5 minutes to go. That's in just under 2 minutes' time. Eddie Irvine out on the track trying to improve on 12th position for Jaguar. His teammate Johnny Herbert is in 13th position. All good so far, half a second off the pace in the first sector. Now, in order to improve his position by 2-3 places, Eddie's only got to go 2/10 of a second faster, and he'd be in the top 10.
Now, I saw the Supremos of the Jaguar team saying that they're missing not having their own wind tunnel, which I think is absolutely correct. They are at a disadvantage over many of the teams, but they've got the same wind tunnel facilities that Stewart had last year, and were winning a race and very, very much at the sharp end in many of the Grand Prix. So I fear their problems are not only not enough time in a wind tunnel at the moment.
Well, they're doing a lot to put the management structure right. More of that in just a moment. Let's see how Eddie Irvine has done as he crosses the line, and he improves to 10th position. So there's a Jaguar in the top 10. Johnny Herbert is 15th. And Neil Ressler, the American who has got such an influential position in the Ford empire, announced yesterday that he's taking over Supremo role at Jaguar with an enormous amount of support from Ford and from people like Wolfgang Reitzler, the head man of Jaguar, Jonathan Browning, who's the managing director, and Richard Parry Thomas, who's their great man on handling. So there's all the brains and management ability in the world behind Jaguar, but it's a long, long climb to the top. How's Ralf Schumacher doing? Well, he is in 5th position, and we're looking at Ricardo Zonta in the BAR down at 17th place in comparison with his teammate Jacques Villeneuve, the 1997 world champion, 10 places ahead of him in 7th position on the grid.
Never quite understand the Zonta situation. He came with highly recommended, really, didn't he? And he just seems, I've said before, it's just a half a step behind the car. Often he seems to be not quite in the right place on the racetrack. Lots of innuendo behind the scenes that Villeneuve, being the main man there and actively involved in the team, that Zonta is artificially kept back. I can't substantiate that. But certainly Zonta never seems to quite shine compared to what we were expecting from him.
No, in his own words, he doesn't do well enough in qualifying. He's the Formula 3000 champion of the past, and he's the Mercedes-Benz GT champion, so he's got all the qualifications in the world. But doing well in lesser formulae, as we remember with Jan Magnussen, doesn't mean to say that you're going to do well in Formula 1. And he one must say, hasn't done well in Formula One thus far. We've got 4 minutes to go. We're watching Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar, unhappy with his lap. He's down in 15th position. Things are not going well for Herbert this season, very sadly. Stewart last year, Jaguar this year, although of course he won the European Grand Prix for Stewart last year. Down into the last 3.5 minutes as we look at Jacques Villeneuve going for it. He's on his last lap now. He's on his 12th lap out of the 12 he's allowed. 0.6 of a second. He could move up into round about 6th position with a great deal of luck. Into the last corner. Turn 13 coming up shortly as he goes over the grid, and as he made it, yes, an excellent 6th position. He displaces Jarno Trulli, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and De La Rosa to 6th position. So the first 3 rows with 3 minutes to go and a lot of action still to come. Schumacher and Häkkinen with 0.365 of a second separating them. Row 2, Barrichello and Coulthard, 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris on the front 2 rows. Ralf Schumacher is 5th, Villeneuve is 6th, James Allen, News.
Here we go, guys, it's the final push. Both the 2 McLarens are about to come out at the same time. They're a little bit off colour today, they know that. They've been fine-tuning the cars. Adrian Newey has been working very, very hard. David Coulthard about to go out behind me. If they're aware of history, they'll know 2 things about this Barcelona circuit. The first one is that you tend to finish the race in the position you qualify in. And the second thing is that every time we've been here for 9 years, the winner has gone on to be the world champion. That's how significant this next few minutes is going to be.
And both the Ferraris go out together. Let's hope that they get a breathing space between them. We don't want contact there.
Just to remind you, those red lights are the new regulation to signify the pit lane limiter is on. So 2 Ferraris line astern, there's a Sauber between them, and then I think you'll see 2 McLarens line astern appearing in the scene in the background.
Led by, and the 2 McLarens, as you rightly say, Martin, with Mika Häkkinen leading his teammate David Coulthard, and Michael Schumacher leading his teammate Rubens Barrichello. So the top 4 with 1.5 minutes to go before the flag goes out. But as I've said before, provided you have started a lap before you reach the checkered flag, you are allowed to complete it. So we could well see pole position being established 61 minutes or so after the start of the session, notwithstanding the fact that it's a 60-minute session.
Well, remember, Michael Schumacher missed his slot in Silverstone for this particular little activity of playing poker with the checkered flag. It was a strange situation there because the start and the finish line are in different places. We haven't got that situation here, and I think they're all going to make it just fine. De La Rosa goes up to 9th, Jenson Button 11, Button up to 11th, but we're now watching the 4 main men on the front of the grid.
And Jenson Button is not going to improve on that 11th position because he's done his 12 laps. It's the 4 men at the front that we're concerned with as the Jenson on his rundown lap passes the arrows.
Yes, Jenson and De La Rosa are about to find 4 very active cars approaching them at some point on this slow down lap of this. They're on the way, Murray.
Here is Schumacher, here is Barrichello. Schumacher out of turn 2 into turn 3. We'll know the answer as he comes through the end of the first sector. Compare his time with his own previous fastest time, and it is just 1/10 of a second off. He can recover that. Rubens Barrichello is quicker still. Rubens Barrichello is 1/10 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher was in that sector. And Mika Häkkinen has yet to go through. David Coulthard is the same time in the first sector as Michael Schumacher. It's tremendously tough, tense stuff this, but it could be that Rubens Barrichello is going to take pole position for the second race in succession, and that would be sensational. But what about Schumacher now? He's still 1/10 of a second off, and Rubens Barrichello now has lost half a second compared with his teammate.
Coulthard too. Coulthard, no, there's not enough grip in the track. They've missed the best of the track. I don't think there's going to be a lot of change at the sharp end, but Michael Schumacher is somewhere there. Häkkinen though, Häkkinen quick in the middle section now. Obviously not the track. The other guys must have made a mistake. Häkkinen on a 32-second mid-sector. Schumacher didn't change.
What's Hakkinen going to do? He's some 20-odd seconds to go yet before Hakkinen crosses the line. Barrichello doesn't do it. Coulthard doesn't do it. What can Mika Hakkinen do? Let's look out for him. I'm going to have to look out of the window. I can't see. Here he comes.
Over the line. And Mika Hakkinen stays in second position, 7/100ths of a second slower than Michael Schumacher. Well, that's how close it is, and for the first time this year, we have Michael Schumacher in pole position. It's the second time in 5 races, the second time in the last 2 races that Ferrari have been in pole position. Very good news for them in Spain, because last year, Hakkinen from pole position and David Coulthard from the front row just cleared off and won the race. So, Schumacher, Hakkinen, Barrichello, Coulthard, 2 Ferraris, 2 McLaren share the 2 front rows. Ralf Schumacher, a quite magnificent 5th fastest in the Williams BMW ahead of Jacques Villeneuve's BAR. 1 second, less than 1 second covers the top 6. Jarno Trulli is 7th in the Jordan and his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 8th. Pedro de la Rosa is 9th. Eddie Irvine and Jenson Button 10th and 11th.
Johnny Herbert is 15th. So 1st and 3rd on the grid for the 2 Ferraris. That's the clean side of the grid. And the 2 McLarens on the dirty side, even if it's the inside when they get down there. It's a long, long run to the first corner. One of the longest in the world. Probably only Monza has a longer run down to turn 1. So perfect situation in many ways for the Ferrari team on the left-hand side of the grid.
And Ferrari, of course, in a very strong position in both the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship. Michael Schumacher leading David Coulthard by 20 points in the Drivers' Championship. And Ferrari 17 points ahead of McLaren. McLaren tomorrow must get ideally a 1st and a 2nd place. 16 points maximum, dramatically to improve their position in the 2 championships. And Michael Schumacher very happy, pole position for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix.
Welcome to the top 3 qualifiers for the 2000 Spanish Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen and Rubens Barrichello. Michael, that's your first pole of the year on what is traditionally a McLaren track. How satisfying is this moment?
Well, it is obviously satisfying, but honestly, if you look back, since the beginning of the season, we always had the opportunity, but we didn't use our opportunity. As you see, things are so close. It's just, if you just get it perfectly right, you can do it. If you just do a little mistake, or if you have some flex and you cannot do your laps, then obviously you don't do it. But, you know, pole position is nice, but on the other side, the race counts, and that's why I just want to wait till tomorrow.
Michael, you mentioned the word perfect there. Given the amount of testing you do around here, was that lap as close to perfect as you can get?
Unfortunately, with this condition we see here, with the wind, you always feel, well, you could have improved here and there a little bit. Whether you actually do or not, it's another question mark, but it was as good as it probably could have been for the circumstance.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Mika, you seem to have been fighting the car a lot in the practice sessions up until now, but you seem to have solved the problems in qualifying. Does the car deserve to be on pole position?
Yes, basically yes. I think we did not get, and I did not get 100% clear run in the whole session until the last run, really. So I didn't really get the opportunity to maximize it.
Okay, thank you, Mika. And Rubens, it seemed that you could have caught Mika on your last run there, but you lost it in the 2nd sector. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, as Michael said, I think it was quite windy and it was unpredictable sometimes when you were out there. So in a way, I thought the car was better this morning with the setup it was than this afternoon. Not that we changed that much, but I didn't feel the car as good as this afternoon. So in a way, you know, it's good to be in the top 3, but I'm disappointed not to be on the 1st row, because I think it should have been better.
Are the handling problems of Silverstone now behind you?
We still have some kind of a problem. This morning, still my steering wheel was still affected, and it's still funny why it happens. But I think the team is getting on the top of it because they know what we need for the future. Basically, if we do a change, we need to check quite often what's going on.
Thank you, Rubens. Michael, for the race tomorrow, how important is the start going to be? Imola and Silverstone, you made some bad getaways. Is it all going to happen in the start tomorrow?
Afterwards, you always know more. Generally, if you do a good start and you can lead the race and you can plan your tactics from the leading position, it's always slightly easier than being in the challenging position. But we have proven that we can win even from behind. So it's not the most necessary, but it helps.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Michael Schumacher has put a Ferrari on pole in Spain, the first time that's happened since Niki Lauda 25 years ago, and a real shock, Tony, because Ferrari always tell us if there's one place they hate, it's the Catalonian circuit.
Apart from anything else, they don't normally test here with the rest. The first time they came here with the 2000 F1 car was last week. Ominously, for McLaren, the Ferrari was quickest both in the wet, at the end of the week, and also in the dry session. Now this, we're seeing, is a shift in the balance of power. If they can get it right here at this very technical track, which has seen McLaren dominance over the last couple of years, means Ferrari have done a great job on this car, which we already know. Big test here, though.
Schumacher going his own way, choosing those different tyres, and well, has he got it right and has everybody else got it wrong?
Well, I mean, the race will play that one out, but I mean, he certainly always thinks of the different options, but it's just great to watch him going around here, and especially he'll be feeling every lap, confirming that this is the best Ferrari that he's ever driven, and it's his demeanour as well. The guy has got a spring in his step. He's going around smiling, running up and down the pit lane, talking to everybody. You know, like this is his year, and this is a crucial race.
Right, let's see what Ferrari have made of their performance. Let's have a word with Ross Brawn, the Ferrari technical director. Here he is then chatting to James Allen.
Ross, second Ferrari pole of the season, the first for Michael, and you felt it was always going to come here.
Yeah, we had a very good test, and we were always a bit unsure where McLaren were, because the tendency is perhaps to run more fuel than we do sometimes, so we were a bit anxious about that. But today everyone's down on the same fuel level, so we're pretty happy.
You're surprised they looked a bit off colour today, the Maccas, didn't they?
A little bit, but I mean, the last few races, from the start of the season, we've been very close. And I think people were saying they had a performance advantage at the beginning. I'm not sure that was the case. Silverstone, if we'd had a clean race, would have been much closer than you saw. So I think it's where we expected.
The race winner here every time at Barcelona has gone on to be world champion. That's an tempting prospect.
Well, I think we'll try and do that either way.
Yeah, we'll see about that. And what about those off-colour Maccas, Coulthard in particular?
Well, it may be of no consequence whatsoever, but the fact that they had a fuel feed problem with his car and then they eventually fixed it, and you can see here a lot of chat, Ron Dennis looking very concerned there. He's speaking about it could be something to do with the simplified electronics. They now mean that the engine and the way it runs, it's much simpler almost than a road car in terms of the electronic control of the engine. It would, some engineers say, be easier almost to run carburettors than with the current simplified system, which of course came in at the British Grand Prix. That may have been a consequence, it may not, but they are not on the ball as they were, and I agree with Martin that Hakkinen was definitely a little bit lacklustre.
A word about Williams. We had Patrick Head here right at the start of the show, and Jenson Button has done pretty well. So has Ralf Schumacher. Perhaps we should give him more credit than we do.
Ralf Schumacher, I think he turned it around, a couple of years ago when he got that 6th place for Jordan at the British Grand Prix, and he's grown in stature and in strength. I think he's an incredibly good driver, good technical driver, so quick and so brave. The other thing is we saw at the British Grand Prix, and we might see here, he takes no prisoners, and that includes his brother as well.
Absolutely. Tony Jardine, thank you very much indeed. Let me just remind you of our coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix. Tomorrow, as always, we're with you with the build-up from 12:15 tomorrow. Highlights, reaction, comment and analysis at 11:30. And on ITV2, we repeat that highlights programme 7 o'clock on Monday night. And there we are then, the first pole of the year for Michael Schumacher and his Ferrari. You know that combination won here in the wet back in '96. Rain predicted for this part of Spain tomorrow. See you for the race. Bye-bye.